It's Parshas Bo, and we have 3 makas in Parshas Bo. Arba we spoke about another time, B'choros another time, and now we're talking about Choshech. So Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Netei Yodcha al Hashamayim v'yehi Choshech al Eretz Mitzrayim. V'yomeish Choshech. L'chore, the v'yehi Choshech and v'yomeish Choshech are both the makkah itself. I mean, Yehi Choshech. And what kind of Choshech? A Choshech of v'yomesh Choshech, tangible Choshech. Eretz Mitzrayim is where the makkah will take place. So it's interesting that the pasuk says Netei v'yehi Choshech al Eretz Mitzrayim v'yomesh Choshech. In other words, between the v'yehi Choshech and the v'yomesh Choshech, it says al Eretz Mitzrayim. L'chora, it would be better to say v'yehi al Eretz Mitzrayim Choshech v'yomesh Choshech, because Choshech and v'yomesh Choshech are both describing the Guf HaMakkah, whereas the al Eretz Mitzrayim is where the Makkah will be. So you know the Onkelos translates this pasuk as follows: V'yehi chashoicha al ara de Mitzrayim bosor the yede kevel lelya. In other words, v'yomesh choshech is a lotion of removing, like lo yomesh amud he'onon, meaning that the choshech of the makas choshech will come after the choshech of the laila will be removed. And v'yomesh choshech, the choshech of the laila will be removed, and there'll be the choshech, this makas choshech, when the day comes. So lefizeh, we can say that first the Torah talks about the guf hamakah, v'yehi choshech, then the place of the makkah, al Eretz Mitzrayim, and then when is it going to happen? V'yomesh choshech, it's going to happen basar the yedei kevel lelya. The time of the makkah is after the night will be over. You know, Rashi brings the Targum and he says, "Aval ein hadibur miyushiv al havov shel veyomesh lefi shehu kosuv achar v'yehi choshech." Rashi is upset with the Targum because it says ve yomesh choshech, and according to the Targum, this actually comes before the yehi choshech. In other words, first there'll be v'yomesh choshech, and then there'll be v'yehi choshech, and then there'll be yehi choshech. It could be that the Onkelos holds that if the Torah would write v'yomesh choshech v'yehi choshech, it would sound like Netei Yodcha al Hashamayim v'yomesh choshech v'yehi choshech. It would sound like the Netei Yodcha al Hashamayim brings about not only the choshech that will come now mikoyach the makkah, but it also affects the v'yomesh choshech. It also makes the choshech of the laila go away, which is not true. Therefore, the Torah didn't write Netei Yodcha al Hashamayim v'yomesh choshech v'yehi choshech, and the Torah writes Netei Yodcha al Hashamayim v'yehi choshech. And then the Torah tells us, when will that be? After it's already v'yomesh choshech. As I daf from the Chorah learning according to the Targum. So that also explains why it says al Eretz Mitzrayim in between. In other words, v'yehi choshech al Eretz Mitzrayim. And when is it going to be? V'yomesh choshech. Even more so because, you know, this v'yomesh choshech, that the choshech of the laila will be removed, is not only going to happen in Mitzrayim. Probably places around Mitzrayim also had the dawn of the morning at that moment. So Mamela, it would be wrong to say that the Yomesh Choshech, if we would say Netei Yodcha al Hashamayim v'yehi Choshech v'yomesh Choshech al Eretz Mitzrayim, so then it would be mashma the v'yomesh Choshech is also exclusively shaykh to Mitzrayim, and it's not so, because the v'yomesh Choshech is everywhere, whereas the yehi Choshech is only in Mitzrayim, and therefore it's metukdik that the pasuk says v'yehi Choshech al Eretz Mitzrayim. And when is that going to be? B'shas the v'yomesh Choshech, but the v'yomesh Choshech is not something that's exclusively Shayach to Mitzrayim. The V'yomish Choshech is not only on Eretz Mitzrayim, it's everywhere. Okay, so we understand according to the Targum why the pasuk says Yehi Choshech al Eretz Mitzrayim v'yomish Choshech. The Eretz Mitzrayim between the Yehi Choshech and the v'yomish Choshech. However, Rashi says a different pshat in v'yomish Choshech. Rashi says v'yachshich aleihem Choshech yoser michesh Choshech laylo. V'choshech shel laylo yamish v'yachshich oid. So Rashi is touching v'yomesh miloshin yamish v'yachshich. Darker than darkness. Yamish v'yachshich oid. So the v'yomesh choshech is really the description of the gufa choshech that will be in Mitzrayim. And Lafizeh, our question comes back that it should have said v'hi choshech v'yomesh choshech together. And why is the Torah mafsik between the Yehi Choshech and the Yomish Choshech with Al Eretz Mitzrayim? Now, what exactly did Rashi say over here? It's not so clear. The Maharal in the Gur Aryeh writes about this Rashi like this: Pirush, the lo havet tzorich lemichtiv v'yomish Choshech. Didn't need to say v'yomish Choshech after it already says v'yehi Choshech. Elo v'yomish Choshech milse b'fnei atzma. V'yomish Choshech is an independent statement. Shetomid tiye hachasheche moisefes v'hoileches. Yehi Choshech and v'yomish Choshech, it's going to keep on getting darker and darker. Shetomid tiye hachasheche moisefes v'hoileches. Ki Choshech hayoim yiye yoise micheshkes halaylo shelifnei boy hachasheche. The Makkah begins in the morning. The darkness in the morning is going to be more than the darkness of the previous regular night. Okay? V'choshech halaylo habo, the next night, is going to be even more than the choshech of the day. It's going to keep on getting more and more. V'yesh lefarish gamkein, mashe pirish Rashi v'yachshich aleim choshech, hu pirish v'yehi choshech. The ein zeh pirish of vayomish choshech. So now the Maharal offers another pshat, that the beginning of this Rashi, where he says v'yachshich aleim choshech yoisem mecheshke sholaylo, is not the taich of vayomish choshech. This is the taich of v'yehi choshech. And why? Because the Maharal says that yehi is the lashon of a havaya chadosha, something new that never was, and therefore the yehi choshech already tells us that the choshech in the morning is going to be darker than the night, because Yehi, the Maharal says this, he saw it in a few places, amongst them, he says this in Parshas Shemois, on the pasuk V'hoyu Hamayim in Dalet Tes, that Yehi is the lashon of a Havaya Chadosha. So therefore he says Yehi Choshech, that the ratio of the Rashi, V'yachshich aleim choshech yoisem mecheshke sholaylo, is not the taich of v'yomish choshech. The taich of v'yomish choshech is v'choshech shelaylo yamish v'yachshich oid. That's what we're learning from v'yomish choshech, that the night after will be darker than the day, and that the morning after will be darker than the night. That's what we learn from v'yomish choshech. So according to the Maharal's second reading in Rashi, it comes out that the V'yehi Choshech is the first morning when the Makkah begins. The V'yomish Choshech is the next night when the Makkah continues into the night, and then it becomes more than it was by day. That's the Yamish V'yachshich Oid. So Lefiza, we also understand why the Torah is mechalik the Yehi Choshech al Eretz Mitzrayim from the V'yomish Choshech, because the Yehi Choshech al Eretz Mitzrayim, that's the first morning, whereas the V'yomish Choshech is only after the first day, only from the night on. Okay, now the Rashi has another pshat. He says, "Midrash Agoda Poisroi." The Midrash Agoda teaches the word v'yomish choshech. Teaches the word v'yomish choshech. Loshen memashesh batzahorayim, a loshen of tangibility, of touching. Memashesh batzoharayim. Shahoya kaful umechupel av. It was double and double. It was thick. At shahoya boy mamish. I'm not sure if you're supposed to say mamish or memesh, but in any case, so the fizeh, the yomesh choshech is describing the quality of the darkness, and the fizeh, our ha'ara comes back. It should have said yehi choshech v'yomesh choshech, and the Torah doesn't say it that way. The Torah says yehi choshech al eretz Mitzrayim v'yomesh choshech. Only as an afterthought, the Torah mentions that choshech that we're talking about is going to be a tangible choshech, the yomesh choshech. It seems strange. So it's ken zayin hazoy. It says vayet Moshe es yodei al hashamayim. Vayehi, when the makkah actually happens, it says vayehi choshech afelo b'chol eretz Mitzrayim shloishes yomim loy ro ish es ochiv v'loy kamu ish mitachtov shloishes yomim ulechol b'nei Yisrael hoya or b'moishvoisam. So this is really, these are two psukim. The first pasuk says vayet Moshe es yodei al hashamayim vayehi choshech afelo b'chol eretz Mitzrayim shloishes yomim. This is pasuk chav beis, and then comes pasuk chav gimel and says loy ro ish es ochiv v'loy kamu ish mitachtov shloishes yomim ulechol b'nei Yisrael hoya or b'moishvoisam. So Rashi says in the Dibur HaMaschil vayehi choshech afelo shloishes yomim choshech shel oifel sheloy ro ish es ochiv oison shloishes yomim. There were 3 days. The first 3 days was dark. People couldn't see each other. V'oid shloishes yomim acherim choshech muchpol al zeh sheloy kamu ish mitachtov yoshev ein yochel la'amoid oimed ein yochel leishiv. In other words, Rashi is bothered by the fact that the Torah repeats the word shloishes yomim. It already said shloishes yomim pasuk chav beis. It says that it'll be b'chol eretz Mitzrayim shloishes yomim. And then in pasuk chav gimel it says lo yiro ish esachav v'lo yikamu ish mitachtov shloishes yomim. Why does it have to say again shloishes yomim? So Rashi is telling us that it's not the same shloishes yomim. There are two shloishes yomims. There's the first shloishes yomim and there's the second shloishes yomim. As the Re'aim explains, so Rashi really does something very mechudishdik. Rashi is saying that even though pasuk chav beis said that the makkah vayehi choshech afelo b'chol eretz Mitzrayim shloishes yomim, and that's the end of pasuk chav beis, and then begins pasuk chav gimel and says loy ro ish es ochiv v'loy kamu ish mitachtov shloishes yomim. Nevertheless, Rashi says that we connect the loy ro ish es ochiv to the pasuk chav beis. In other words, choshech afelo b'chol eretz Mitzrayim shloishes yomim loy ro ish es ochiv, as if over here the pasuk ends. And then, v'loy kamu ish mitachtov shloishes yomim, that's the last shloishes yomim, where the choshech was so strong that they couldn't move. Okay, so now, l'chayra, what Rashi brought before from the Midrash Agoda, the Vayomish, is shahoya kaful umechupol av, at shahoya boy mamish, is l'chayra not about the first 3 days. Because the first 3 days was just an afelo shaloi ro ish es ochiv. For that, l'chayra, you don't need a choshech av, until the morning comes. I mean, you're not mishiak es chavero. You can't. It's lo ro ish es ochiv. So the Medrash Agoda that says that it was a choshech kaful umechupel av is mistama talking about the last 3 days where it was loy kamu ish mitachtov shloishes yomim. So the first 3 days, it wasn't yet a choshech kaful umechupel av. And since the Medrash Agoda is saying that vayomish choshech is a loshon of mamish, that it was a tangible choshech, a choshech kaful umechupel av, that was only in the last 3 days. So in Mela, it's very good that the pasuk says that v'yehi choshech al eretz Mitzrayim v'yomish choshech. It doesn't say it together, because the choshech al eretz Mitzrayim and the v'yomish choshech are talking two different things. The choshech al eretz Mitzrayim is the first 3 days, and the v'yomish choshech is only the last 3 days. Now Rashi continues and he says like this: V'lama hevi aleihem choshech. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring the makas choshech? Sheho you be Yisrael, ba'oisei ador rishoy. V'lo yehoyu roitzim lotzeis. They didn't want to leave Mitzrayim. U'meisu b'shloshus yimei afela kedei shelo yiru Mitzrayim b'mapolosam v'yoimru af heim loikim kamoinu. V'oid shechipsu Yisrael v'ro es keleihem u'ksheyotzu v'hoyu shoya lemehem v'hoyu oimrim ein biyodenu klum. The Egyptian says they don't have anything. Oimer lo yani re'isiv b'beischo b'mokem ploini. So, by all the makkahs, in the Midrash Chazal, they give various reasons for the makkahs and show how it was a midah keneged midah for whatever the Mitzrim did. Rashi doesn't bring those midrashim. So why is it by this makkah in particular that Rashi finds it necessary to say v'lama laku b'choshech? And not only does Rashi find that it needs to have a reason, but Rashi gives two reasons. From the fact that this Rashi comes in one dibur with the reisha of the Rashi that says that there were two halves of the Makas Choshech. There were the first 3 days of Loi Ro Ishes Achim and the last 3 days of Loi Kamu Ish Mitachtav. It would seem that the two reasons that Rashi is giving correspond with the two halves of the Makas Choshech. And so says the Maharal, V'zel Shoynoi in the Gur Aryeh. He says, U'mipnei shehukshu Rashi lefizeh. After Rashi said that the Makas Choshech came in two halves, it was hukshu Rashi lefizeh. V'lama hoyat bekan shinui. Why was there a shinui in the Makkah? Shelo yoisa Makkah shava. It wasn't one straightforward. It wasn't straight one Makkah. Shlosh yom rishonim hoya choshech shelo roish esachiv. Shlosh yom machronim shelo kamu. V'chol ha'makkahs hoisa Makkah b'shava kol hayomim. All other Makkahs, there was one Makkah. Kinim was the same Kinim the whole time. Dam was the same Dam the whole time. So why is it over here that the Makkah was divided into two? So he says, Umitaretz Rashi, V'lama hevi aleim, v'chulei, v'hashte, mishum shnei taimim elu, hevi HaKadosh Baruch Hu shnei minei choshech. Ki mitam sheyomusu poishe Yisrael begimul yemei afela, dai b'choshech shelo yiru, bilvad, misosam ukvurosam. It's enough that the Egyptians should not see the Yidden that are dying. They shouldn't see them being buried. So that choshech is enough for that purpose. But if the reason is the choshech of not seeing is not enough, they would lock the doors of the houses. They would hear the commotion and they would get up and stop it. That's why there was a need for a choshech of loy hoya echad yochol loko. So kum techos that we're not talking over here about an increase in the same makkah, but we're talking really about two different makkahs, so to speak, that are coming for two different reasons. The first 3 days is for the reason of not seeing the kvura of the Meisei of the Paisha Yisrael. The second 3 days is in order that you should be able to search their matmonius. So these are really two different inyonim. And therefore the Torah is mechalik, as we said, between the V'hi Choshech al Eretz Mitzrayim, which is the first 3 days, and the V'yomesh Choshech, which is the last 3 days, which is a different inyan, is coming for a different reason. Now I want to be moisif. It says, Vayoyme Hashem al Moshe netei yodcha v'goyme vayet Moshe yodoi. So he was told netei yodcha, and he did vayet Moshe yodoi. So the Orach Chaim says, Tzorich ladas lama b'makas arbe hasmucha lo. The makkah just before Hagam she'omalei Hashem netei yodcha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't tell him Horei mesmatcha. He said netei yodcha. So, but nevertheless, Amar HaKosuv vayet Moshe es matehu. When he actually carried out the tzivui, it says that he took the mate. V'gam b'chol ha'makos Lo hoisa makeh shehiskir bonetias yad elamate ubemakezu omar es yodoi. Here it says that when he carries out the tzivui, he's vayet Moshe's yodoi. The tzivui is yodoi, and the carrying out of the tzivui is with yodoi. So why is that? Where's the mate? So he says, "V'ulai sheyiskaven al pi divrayim." That it says in the Tanchuma, "Ki choshech shel Mitzrayim hoyo me'oisoi choshech diksiv yoshes choshech sisroi." This is some kind of a mysterious choshech about which the pasuk in Tehillim says yoshes choshech sisroi. It's a choshech elyon. Asher lochein lo nohag minig miut derech kovoid lintois mateu klape ma'ala. So it's not mechubadik, since we're dealing over here with a choshech, which is the upper choshech elyon, which Kaviyochel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as if hides in that choshech, and we're bringing that choshech down. It's not proper to use a mate. Gam liyesh mirabbi seinu, in the same Tanchuma that say that shechoshech zehoya migehenim, ulai ki shneim niskavnu al ha'emes ki beis minei choshech hoyu echad sheshimish begimel yomim sheloi ro ve'echad sheshimish begimel yomim acherim sheloi komu. And he's wanting to say that it's mara machadu v'loi pligi. One was the choshech elyon, and one was a choshech shel gehenim. Now, it's noteworthy that even though the Pashtas HaPosik is mashma, that in this makkah he didn't use the mate, and he only was noites yodoi. But in the Rishonim, it's mefurish not like that. on the Posik, in Parshas Shemois, es hamate hazeh tikach biyodecha asher taseh bo yasa oisos. The Ibn Ezra says tam ha'oisos shehofach lenochosh le'enei Yisrael ulesanin lefnei paroi ulehakois bo yasa yaor ulehalois hatzvardim ulehoitzi akinim ulehoirid haborod ulehovi ha'arbe v'li yois choshech. So he's saying mefurish that the makas choshech was also with the mate, and so says the Rabbeinu Bachye in Parshas Shemois on the pasuk Mazeh b'yodcha. So we have to say that that's because we see that by the makas borod in Tes Chav Beis it says Vayoyma Hashem el Moshe neteyas yodcha al hashamayim, but nevertheless it says in pasuk Chav Gimel Vayeit Moshe mateu al hashamayim. Same as in the makas Arba, it says in pasuk in Yud Beis Vayoyma Hashem el Moshe netei yodcha al eretz Mitzrayim, but nevertheless it says in pasuk Yud Gimel Vayeit Moshe mateu al eretz Mitzrayim. So it must be that the yodcha that's in the tzivui doesn't mean his hand alone, but it means his hand with a matin. So also in the makas choshech, even though in the makas choshech not only does the matin not appear in the tzivui, but it doesn't even appear in the kiyum of the tzivui. It says vayet Moshe es yodoi. But we learned that just like in the tzivui, the matin, the pasuk could be talking about yodoi, and it includes the mate. So also in the Vayet Moshe's Yodoi in the Kiyum Hatzivui, the Yodoi means Yodoi with the mate. And so it's mufurish in the Ibn Ezra over here. In Pasuk Chav Aleph, he says, Miderech hasvara ki amate hoya b'yodoi, af pi she'einenu kosuv. And he says the same thing by the Makas Borot. So the Rishonim are saying that he did use a mate. But we can still ask, I mean, if he used the mate, so why is it this is the only makkah where it doesn't say that, not only it doesn't say in the tzivui, but it doesn't even say in the kiyum tzivui, the mate. It's the only makkah where the mate doesn't appear at all. So the question is still a question. I mean, the question of the Orach Chaim, according to these Rishonim that are saying before that he did use the mate, so why did the Torah omit the mate? So maybe we can say, based on the above mentioned, that the choshech in the first 3 days and the choshech in the last 3 days were two different choshechs. So we can say that the Orach Chaim is right, that since the choshech was from that choshech elyon of Yoshes choshech sisroi, so it's a miut covered to use the mate, klape ma'ila. But this is all true about the choshech of the last 3 days, which was the choshech of Yoshes choshech sisroi. But the choshech of the first 3 days, which was just the lack of light, a choshech afela, that's not that Yoshes choshech sisroi dike choshech. So he used the mata because of the first 3 days. But for the last 3 days, the mata was really not being used, even though Avada, the makkah was brought on by one doing. But the Torah omits the mata from the pasuk of Vayet Moshe as Yodoi, because the Yodoi was relevant to the entire makkah, to both halves of this makkah, whereas the mata which he used was only relevant to the first 3 days and not to the last 3 days. And therefore the Torah brings only the yad, which was relevant to the entire makkah. Okay, I just say this, you could say Lagabi the Rabbeinu Bachye, but not Benegea to the Ibn Ezra, because I think the Ibn Ezra has a totally different opinion about this whole thing. It seems that the Ibn Ezra doesn't accept the idea that there were 2 types of choshech. Because in the Dibur HaMaskal, V'loi kamu ish mitachtov, he says, mi beisoi, kemoi shvu ish tachtov. So it means not to leave the house. Ki ona yelchu b'loi or. Why would somebody leave the house if he can't see anything? So he's learning that the choshech afela of loiro ish esochiv, that was the gorim for Loi kamu ish mitachtov. They didn't leave the house. So it's not that there were 2 types of choshech. It also seems that the Ibn Ezra holds that the shloishes yomim of Pasuk Chav Beis are the same shloishes yomim of Pasuk Chav Gimel. And he holds that the Makas choshech was only for 3 days. Why do I say that? Because in the Dibur HaMaskal Vayet, he says, V'lo yodu shehoya Gimel yomim, that the Egyptians didn't know that 3 days passed. Elo al pi Yisrael shehoya lem or. They only knew from the Yidden who had or that there were 3 days here. V'hinei biyamu kionus yovei choshech av shelo yuchal odam lahafrish ben yoim ubein layla v'yamoid ze lefa'omim chamisha yom v'ani yisi shom pomim rabbis, says the Ibn Ezra, that he's experienced this, that for days you don't know that it's dark, it's total darkness. But the Mashmoah says that over here the choshech was only 3 days. What is he saying? From where did he pick up this thing that they only knew that the days are passing from the Yidden? It seems like he's teaching that. What is the pasuk saying? In the pasuk of Gimel it says, "V'loikamu ish mitachtav shloshos yomim ulechol b'nei Yisrael hoya or b'moshvaisam." Now there's a problem over here because the pasuk repeats the shloshos yomim in pasuk of Gimel. And it already said Shloshos Yomim in Pasuk Chav Beis. So Rashi says that it's not the same Shloshos Yomim. But the Ibn Ezra Shitose that holds that it is the Shloshos Yomim is struggling with the mention of the Shloshos Yomim in Pasuk Chav Gimel. And his answer to this question is that what the Pasuk is saying is Shloshos Yomim ulechol b'nei Yisrael hoya or b'moshvaisa. In other words, how did they know that it was Shloshos Yomim? Because l'chol b'nei Yisrael hoya or b'moshvaisa. U'memele, they heard from the Yidden that it was 3 days. They wouldn't have known that it's 3 days. That's why Pasuk Chav Gimel repeats the Shloshos Yomim, in order to connect it with the Veloy, with the L'chol B'nei Yisrael Hoya Or B'Moshvaisam, because that's how they found out that it was Shloshos Yomim. Agaponim Lefizeh, we can't say B'Shitosai that the reason that the Torah omits the Mata is because of the 2 halves of the Makas Choshech, that one half didn't require the Mata and was only done with a yad, because according to him, there was only one Makas Choshech for all the 3 days, and it's Sarchi. Now, in spite of the fact that according to Rashi, the 3 days of Pasuk Chav Beis and the 3 days of Pasuk Chav Gimel are not the same 3 days. But when the Pasuk Chav Gimel concludes, Ulechol b'nei Yisrael hoya or b'moshvaisam, it's going not only on the last 3 days of Pasuk Chav Gimel, it's going also on the days, the Shloshos Yomim of Pasuk Chav Beis. Because, are we going to say that in the first 3 days, it was dark for the Yidden also. Some are not. However, I want to say that it's not so poshut that the L'chol B'nei Yisrael Hoya Or B'Moishvoisam, with which the Pasuk of Gimel concludes, is going also on Pasuk of Beis. It could be it's only talking about the last 3 days, and as I will explain. You know, the Mishnah in Avos says in Perek Asora Nisim Nasu Lavoseinu B'Mitzrayim V'Asora Al Hayam. Eser Makois Hevi HaKadosh Baruch Hu Al HaMitzrim B'Mitzrayim Ve'Eser Al Hayam. It's before the Mefarshim that these 10 Nisim Shenasu Lavoseinu are that they were saved from the Makis. In other words, there were 10 Makis on the Yam, there were 10 Makis in Mitzrayim, 10 Makis on the Yam, and there were 10 Nisim Yisrael in Mitzrayim and 10 Nisim al Yam, meaning that they were spared and they were saved from the Makis that happened to the Mitzrayim b'Mitzrayim and from the Makis that happened to the Mitzrayim al Ha-Yam. So it's mavur that all the Makis did not affect the Yidden, meaning that even the Makis, about which it doesn't say in the Torah that they didn't affect the Jews, like Dam, Tzvardei, Akinim, it doesn't say. But nevertheless, we take the position that it didn't happen to the Yidden. And probably because, the Makis were in order to be Machniya the Mitzrim. Why would they come on the Yidden? Adirabba, we need an explanation for those Makis where the Torah spells out that it didn't happen to the Jews. Why did the Torah need to spell that out? And the Rashbam actually says something about this in Ches Yud Ches. But Homia, the pashtus of the Mishnah is that none of the Makis affected the Yidden, even those Makis where it doesn't say that it didn't affect the Yidden. So the Fizeh, even if we say that L'chol B'nei Yisrael Hoya Or B'Moishvoisam is only talking about the last 3 days, it doesn't mean that it was dark for the Jews the first 3 days, because it's Loigora from Makis Kinim that we say that it didn't affect the Jews who are din. Makis Choshech didn't affect the Jews without the pasuk of L'chol B'nei Yisrael Hoya Or B'Moishvoisam. But if so, the question is, so what is the pasuk of L'chol B'nei Yisrael Or B'Moishvoisam telling us? If we anyway know that Yidden did not experience darkness, and that's how we know that they didn't have darkness in the first 3 days. So why would the Torah tell me L'chol B'nei Yisrael Hoya Or B'Moishvoisam on the last 3 days? But in the Shmois Rabbah, it says like this: B'shloishes Yemei Afela v'chulei Hoya Yisrael nichnes l'toich bateim shel Mitzrim v'hoyu royen b'hem klei kesef v'klei zov v'smolos im hoyu oimrim ein lanu lahashil lochem hoyu Yisrael oimrim lahem hareyu b'makom ploini v'oisa shah hoyu hamitzrim oimrim im hoyu elei roitzim l'shaker bonu hoyu noitlin oisam b'yamei achoshech v'lo hayinu margishim sharei ro oisan kvar achar shelo inogu chutz midatenu k'moy kein lo yachziku v'hoyu mashilum lahem l'kayim mashilem v'achar ken yetzu b'rechush godel hadod iksivu l'chol b'nei Yisrael hoya or b'moishvoisam be'eretz Goshen lo nemar elo b'moishvoisam. Now, the Medrash is teaching Moishvoisam is not the Moishavos of the Yidden, but the Moishvoisam of the Egyptians. Shekol mokem shehoyu Yisrael nichnas, hoya or nichnas umeir loy mashe b'chaviyos u'b'masmoiniyos. V'aleim nemar ner l'ragli dvorecha, v'or l'nesivosi. And al derech zets in the Tanchuma that the hoya or meir l'Yisrael u'mar lahem klei kesef v'zov v'smolos v'chol tov Mitzrayim u'mashe b'tevois u'b'chaviyos u'b'masmoiniyos. So the Fizeh, the pasuk of L'chol B'nei Yisrael Hoya Or B'Moishvoisam is not coming to tell us that it wasn't dark. The fact that it wasn't dark is just like Dam Tzvardei Akinim didn't happen to the Yidden, so it wasn't dark for the Yidden. That's a given. The L'chol B'nei Yisrael Hoya Or B'Moishvoisam is teaching us about the special or through which they were able to see through the Tevois. They were able to see through the Chaviyos. This is a special or that the pasuk is telling us L'chol B'nei Yisrael Hoya Or B'Moishvoisam, and this the Fizeh was only in the last 3 days, because the first 3 days were not for looking for the Machmonius. The first 3 days, as the Maharal tells us, V'das Rashi, the first 3 days were for what? Were for burying the Meisei Yisrael, and therefore they weren't being oisik in the first 3 days in looking for the Machmonius. Therefore, they didn't need that Ner L'Ragli Dvarecha They didn't need that or of L'chol B'nai Yisrael Hoya Or B'Moi Shvoisam. So it's taka very good that this L'chol B'nai Yisrael Or B'Moi Shvoisam appears in Pasuk Chav Gimel Behemshich to the last 3 days of Choshech, because it only is being said about those last 3 days of Choshech, because the first 3 days of Choshech they didn't have the L'chol B'nai Yisrael Hoya Or B'Moi Shvoisam. You know that it's Yadua that the Eser Makis are connected to Asora Ma'amoros Shebehen Nivra Ha'olam, and the Maral is marach in this in Perik Nun Zayin in the Sefer Gvuras Hashem. Comes out that the Yehi Or, the Makas Choshech is connected the second mimer of the Ma'aser Bereshis. Since we say Bereshis Nami Mimer, who's the second mimer is Yehi Or, and the Makas Choshech is connected the mimer of Yehi Or. Now you know that this could really have to do with the fact that this Makkah was split into 2 halves. There's the 3 first days of Choshech and the second 3 days of Choshech, because you know that in Yehi Or it says Vayomer Elokim Yehi Or Vayar Elokim Es Or Ki Tov Vayavdel Elokim Bein Or Ubein HaChoshech. Yeah. So Rashi says on the pasuk in Parshas Bereshis, Rashi says Vayar Elokim Es Or Ki Tov Vayavdel Av Bazeh Onu Tzrichim L'Divrei Agoda Ra'ohu She'enoi Kedai L'Ishtamesh Boi Rishoim V'hivdiloi L'Tzadikim La'osid Lovoi. That's the Lashon HaGemara in Chagiga Gonzoi L'Tzadikim. That's called the Or HaGonuz. So you see that in the Maimer of Yehi Or, there are 2 levels of Or. There's the level of Or that was originally created and it was Nignaz, and then there's the level of Or that we have. Like we say, Or Oilom Ba'oitzar Chaim. Oirois me oifel Omar Vayehi. The Oirois me oifel, that's the relative Or. That's Omar Vayehi. But the Or Oilom, the original Or, is Ba'oitzar Chaim. That's hidden. Now, you know that it says in the Zohar and the Hashmotis of Bereshis, Daf Reish Samach Daled, that the Or HaGonuz was Nignaz in the Torah. Now, since the Medrash says on this L'chol B'nai Yisrael Hoya Or B'Moi Shvoisam Hadod Iksiv Ner L'Ragli Dvorecha, which is talking about Torah. So obviously we're talking over here about the Or HaGonuz. And that Or HaGonuz is the kind of Or that the Chavias and the Tevois are not a chatzitza from seeing, and therefore they were able to see through the Chavias and the Matmonius and the Tevois. Now, it comes out that the 2 dargis of Choshech are mechovin keneged the 2 dargis in the Or, and the Or that Yidden had are those 2 dargis of the Or. There's the regular Or that they had the first 3 days, which is the Or of not Choshech, the Or of Oris Me'oifel, and that's what they had in the Shloshis Yimei Afela in the first 3 days. In the last 3 days, when there was that Choshech of Yoshes Choshech Sisroi, there was that high level of Choshech. So we were Zoiche, as the Zohar says, Nogoif V'Rofoi, that all the Makis were Nogoif L'Mitzrayim V'Rofoi L'Yisrael. So we were Zoiche to Ha'ora of the Or HaGonuz. Actually, the Malbim over here says that Heir Lohem Hashem Or HaGonuz, without any source. But according to what we're saying, this is really mavur in the Medrash, because it says that Hadod Iksiv Ner L'Ragli Dvorecha. Having said that, I wish you all a good Shabbos.